Pam, you're muted.
That's going to be the catchphrase of, 21. Thank you. Okay, let me start over. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is our first session of the Real World Parenting session series. Now I'm all rattled. We are thrilled that you're here this evening. As you may know, Family Service and Guidance Center is here in Topeka, and we specialize in treating children of all ages who struggle with mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, ADHD, behavioral issues, and a lot of other challenges that our kiddos are facing these days. In fact, we're the only community mental health center in the state of Kansas that specializes in treating kids. And we're really pleased to provide these monthly topics, and they change every month to help you all as parents and caregivers, because we know it is very tough these days, especially given the fact that we're in the COVID-19 world. So we are here for you, and we're really excited about this new format. It's going to be more conversational, and hope you get a lot out of it. So thank you so much for submitting some great questions in advance. A couple of housekeeping notes that I wanted to provide for you all. We are recording this session, and it will be posted on our website tomorrow. A lot of folks are busy, and maybe today didn't work for them. So we're continuing to provide resources on our website. Please make sure, if you could, that you're muted for this session, just to help everybody kind of keep focus. And if you need a certificate of attendance for some reason, please do in the comment box. If you could type your first and last name and just put the word certificate, we'll make sure that we get one of those sent to you via email. So again, thank you so much for being here. I am going to now turn it over to Miss Jennie Watson. She is our school-based services manager at FSGC, and she's going to just give you a brief overview, and then we're going to jump right into your questions. So thanks again for being here, and thank you for catching the fact that I didn't have the volume on, which is super great. So Jennie, please help me, save me, take it away.
I got you. So thank you, Pam. And I will just reiterate, thank you all for being here. It's been a tough, to say it's been a tough year is the understatement of the century. To tell someone that they are on mute is the quote of 2020, and it's gaining steam in 2021. So it's just an interesting life we are living right now. So as Pam said, my name is Jennie Watson, and I do supervise the school-based services with Family Service and Guidance Center. I've done a handful of different jobs at the agency over the years, and this will not be the first time I've said I'm doing my favorite one right now, because I get to do some really cool things in the job that I do, and some really cool opportunities, including to do things like this. So I really appreciate your participation, engagement, questions, things of that nature, because Pam can attest to this. I could talk for hours about all things kid, mental health, agency, and that's not always super helpful. So by having this list of questions that I have in front of me, I will try really hard to stay on track and stay focused, and hopefully you guys can walk away with maybe not exactly what you wanted answered, but hopefully you can gain from your attendance tonight. So as Pam mentioned, I've been at the agent, well, as I mentioned as well, I've been at the agency a long time. And even though I've been there almost 16 years, I'm a mom first. I didn't become a mom first. My kiddo's only 7 as of Tuesday. She reminds me all the time because I keep saying she's 6, but she's 7 now. But even though, I've only been a mom for 7 years and I've been at the agency 16, being a parent comes first. So I was joking that with Pam earlier tonight that I'm lucky and that I have a huge support system, and I did have somewhere for her to go tonight, because otherwise you would have got to see the real world with her like thinking she's super sneaky, creeping along behind me, and you'd see this little red bobbing head. Doing these kinds of things, living this kind of life where we're trying to work at home, do school at home, do all these non-home things at home. None of us were prepared for this. There's 1,000 parenting books out there on how to do parenting. And there's probably going to be 1,000 books on parenting in a pandemic, but there sure wasn't one in March of 2020. So we're building this plane as we fly it. Speaking of that, you're going to hear a lot of those cliches, the unprecedented times, and we're all in this together, but those things are said because they're real. And that's what we're living right now. There's a piece of this that we have control over and that we have choices within. And then there's a huge chunk that we don't. And I'm going to hit a few topics before I get into your questions. But the content, these little nuggets that I'm getting ready to kind of talk about, apply all the way across the board. I think for all kids, all parents, all grandparents, all adults taking care of kids and trying to have a happy, safe, stable family. So one of those is this piece about what we have control over and what we don't. It's really, really easy, and it's kind of human nature to focus on how unfair things are and how this isn't right, and all of those kinds of different nuances that go on in our mind. And you're not wrong, and your kids aren't wrong if they say those things. But one of the things I implore you to consider is, what do we have control over? We don't have control over this piece, but we do have it over here. And when people feel a sense of being out of control, that often leads to feeling unsafe. And if a person feels if the perception is a sense of unsafe surroundings, it doesn't matter the reality. If our children feel unsafe, then it's human nature, it's brainstem stuff, that they have to do things to make themselves feel safe. And they're using what I call, kid logic. The solution for their perceived problem often doesn't make sense. It doesn't always make a straight line or a pretty picture, but in their mind it makes sense. And so that's what they're doing. It's kind of an example of, I'm trying to think of a good analogy here, but it's helping this very small scale analogy, but when school is back in session, there's not a choice of whether or not you go, but here's a choice of which outfit you pick out, which shoes you wear that day. Finding the choices, even though they're small, finding choice and control that you can give your child or give a person will help just a little bit. And I implore you to also consider looking for small successes. Look for small little things, because it's that culmination of all the little things that turns into a big thing. Right now, there's lots of big bad things happening in our world. And the more that we can try to put them in a column of, do I have control? Can I help with this, or do I not? And the things that you can't control, the things you can't help with, let those exist over here. And we try to kind of almost compartmentalize a little bit. It's good to be aware of what's happening in the world, but too much of that can really, really impact our mental health in a very negative way. I also want to kind of get into the reality of what works today might not work tomorrow, but it'll work again tomorrow, the day after that. So there is no one solution for any of the challenges that you guys face as caregivers of children. That's why you need to have a toolbox of interventions, a toolbox of ideas, so that you can try different things. And I would just, give yourself grace and give yourself permission to know that you, even though you are a caregiver of this child, you are a parent of this child, you are not expected to know all the answers instantly like that, maybe not even over time. That's why we teach problem solving. We teach these skills of, if this doesn't work, let's try something else. The important piece is that you're providing that the unconditional love and the unconditional support, and your role modeling for your kids or the kids that you're with, what behavior you want to see out of them. Because a lot of this comes from, at the agency, we talk a lot about top down, bottom up stuff. The message coming from the top down and how that gets perceived, and then content and information from the bottom up and what we do with that. It's, a lot of that language that we use in running a business. And if we think about running our family as kind of like running a business, it's not in this time of a pandemic, during a COVID, I would encourage you to be open to communication, always going both ways. Leading by example. The more we're able to talk to our kids in age appropriate language, of course, to say, and I'll get into more of these once I hit your questions, but to have these conversations around, yes, this feels scary. Yes, this feels unfair. And here's some things that we can do about it. We can write letters. We can color pictures to send to people. I've had a group that I worked with, and the kids were feeling really sad because they had seen how some of the assisted living and nursing home type facilities had shut down to visitors. And so I don't know whether the people that live there ever actually got the pictures that the kids colored, but the kids felt better about all ripping a page out of this coloring book. They all sat there and colored them. We gathered them up and we mailed them. That's what I'm kind of referencing when I'm mentioning, like, what can we do within the context of the world that we're in? And also allowing your kids to be the experts for themselves. I recently read an article that was actually sent to me by Pam that talked a lot about one of the best ways, and it's kind of one of those moments where you're like, oh, absolutely. One of the best ways to find out what our kids need is to ask them, to talk to them. What ideas do you guys have? Because we as real life grownups, our minds are rarely focused on just one thing. Even though we're listening, we're also thinking about, do I need to get the chicken out of the freezer for dinner? And did I remember to pay that bill? And oh my gosh, I'm almost out of gas and the car's going to be so cold in the morning. All of those thoughts are running through our adult brains at the same time as we're listening to our kids. They are going to have ideas that we don't have because they're not bogged down as much with the adult responsibilities and the adult things that we have going on. So encourage them to be creative, encourage them to give their ideas and share their ideas. And even if you can't put that stuff into motion, you can still hear them, you can still consider that, and then you can maybe take pieces of it to apply in the work and the things that you're trying to do with them. So that's just kind of a quick little content that could apply to everybody. And then from here, I am going to go ahead and slide into your specific questions. I'll tell you what I did with them is I tried to kind of group them together because there was a lot of questions that were kind of similar in nature. So good news is for some of you, you're definitely not alone. And then once I clumped them together by category, I kind of tried to put them in an order of, where my knowledge base and expertise kind of live so that we could hit those first. I do want to say before I get into these too, a little disclaimer that talking about our kids are one of the most precious things we have. And we all probably have really strong opinions and thoughts and beliefs when it comes to how we're raising our kids. The things that I'm getting ready to talk about, the content here, the suggestions, the ideas, it's just one idea. It's what's most important is that you take the information and you apply it in the way that fits your parenting styles and the needs of your kids. This is definitely not a one size fits all type of deal, because that doesn't exist. And if I don't get to all of your questions, I'll do my best. I will do my best. All right. And again, I talk about tough stuff because that's the reality of this world, and that's the content of some of these questions that came through. So I also just want to kind of give that little disclaimer. I moved this one to the very top of my list because safety concerns and safety risks are always one of the first things we're assessing when we're looking at a young person, a person who may be struggling with mental health needs. And the question here says, I'm curious about substance use and suicide. I'm hearing more and more about these issues showing up in younger and younger populations. How has the pandemic impacted some of our preteens? I don't have measuring numbers and data for this kind of stuff is really tricky, and it takes a while to get it all together. So I don't have numbers or data, but I did move this to the top because Pam and myself and Dr. Callis at Family Service and Guidance Center, we actually work with a group of youth in an effort to address the suicide concerns and stuff of the youth in Shawnee County. And I teach a lot of classes on this. There will be, and Pam would have to tell me what month it is, but there is a real world parenting night where suicide and youth suicide is the topic. So hopefully she'll be able to share with us what month that is. She's probably looking it up as we speak. So what I will say though about substance use and suicide in youth is that it is starting at younger and younger ages, and the things that people are able to get their hands on and what could be considered age appropriate youth experimentation versus substance use dependency versus abuse. I mean, all of that gets into some very complicated areas. The combination of substance use and a potential mental health concern, the combination of substance use and potential suicidal ideation, that just magnifies the risk. And when we are assessing a youth for safety, that is something we would certainly ask about. And I would strongly, strongly encourage you all to, if you have a youth in your life that you're concerned about suicide risk or harm by suicide, death by suicide, I'm sorry, I would strongly encourage reaching out to whether it's family service or another mental health professional, because if there's something that makes you kind of think about that or worry about that specifically for the young person in your life, there's a reason you're thinking that. And I always, always would rather have some support in that, because it's just such a serious thing. And it is becoming more of a concern as we're starting to get vaccines, as we're starting to see some restrictions being lifted with our physical health in regards to response to COVID. People like myself and other mental health professionals are going, okay, well, here comes the next wave of this, which is going to be potentially increased anxiety around returning to real world, whatever that looks like. And it looks like Pam did just pop up in our chat here, Thursday, September 16th. So that's a few months from now, but really, really great class and gives more information. So we're kind of bracing for increased, like I said, anxiety in youth around returning to school, returning to the community. Youth who historically have been more internalizers, or struggled with depression. This last year has not been great. We've been encouraging, more isolation in some ways in an effort to keep people safe. And, from a screener perspective, we always have to treat the physical stuff first, and then the mental health stuff kind of comes next. So that's where we're at right now. The physical stuff is starting to show some signs of a light at the end of the tunnel. I anticipate we will see a new wave, or an increased need across the board of mental health supports. And for those of you that are local to Shawnee County and are familiar with family service, of course, we're there for you. If you're not, or not maybe sure if you're ready to take that step, I also wanted to mention there's a lot of support in the community, talking to your child's pediatrician, if they have one, or primary care physician. They could kind of talk about, they could help you decipher is this normal age appropriate kid stuff, or is this beyond that? And kind of send you in the direction of some other qualified professionals. But the increased isolation, the loss of developmentally appropriate events, my nephew was a graduating senior in the class of 2020. And I remember he really struggled with the loss of his senior prom, the loss of his senior baseball season, and graduation. Now, me, as a person who's a lot of years post high school, I now know that there's a whole nother life that and a whole nother section of chapters of your life that you live when you're done with high school. And that like at some point he's going to be okay. But I also had to remind myself, like right now, even though I'm kind of going, come on, dude, like it's just prom, you're fine. It's just graduation, you're fine. I even found myself saying that. And then I was like, wait, no, Jennie, like back that up. This is a huge loss for him. And will he be fine? Yes. Yes, he will. I'm confident in it. But right now I have to remember that was one of the biggest things that he was looking forward to. And it was a big piece of his development and his maturity process into becoming a young adult. And not having the opportunity to do that, it really, sorry, but it just really sucks for him. And so instead of telling him, don't worry about it, dude, just get over it, you're going to be fine, what I told him was, you know what, like, you're right, that's super unfair. And it really sucks. And we brainstormed, and then I asked him, what would you like to do instead? Yeah, you can't have the traditional blah, 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 but what can we do instead? What ideas do you have? And, he thought about it and he's like, are you serious? Like, you really want it? And I go, yes, I'm serious. What are your ideas? He thought of some things. We talked about it, put some things together. And was it the same? No. But he had an opportunity to be a part of the planning process, and he utilized it. So getting them involved in that is a big deal. So those are the ways that I feel like this pandemic is impacting our youth, our kids, is age appropriate developmental rites of passages are being missed and lost. And so it's partially up to us to then put that opportunity in front of them to brainstorm some different ideas. But again, I just can't stress enough the importance of managing their safety. If you have concerns, please, please, please reach out. Family Service has a 24-hour crisis line. Whether you're a client of ours or not, it doesn't matter. Give us a call and we'll help walk you through that, because something of that magnitude, you shouldn't be in alone. We want to make sure that we provide you with resources so that that's not something you feel alone in. My next chunk of questions I will read through has a lot to do with motivation. Says, how do you get children up and moving again when they have been inside for so long? How do you get kids to help around the house? What expectations should I have for my 8-year-old and 3-year-old? It talks about the messy house, stressing people out, how to engage kids without going outside, and how to avoid screens, and how do I get my teens to be motivated to do anything. So I kind of clumped all of those together because they definitely fall in my, like I said, in the motivation category. It gets back to that, putting it to them. Screen time is not an option right now. And like, I know that sucks, or that stinks, depending on language. But I can give you three other choices, or I'll give you two and you give me a third. There's a ton of different websites and curriculum ideas of different activities you can do inside that's kind of fun. Around Christmas time, we did one on a group Zoom call with like 45 different, 40-ish, 45 managers. We did an inside scavenger hunt. Remember that, Pam? She's nodding her head. So it was just finding stuff in your house, and it was like 10 categories. And it was like, okay, go. And all of us ran around our own houses and collected all of our things and brought them in and showed them off. And it was kind of fun. So parents, caregivers, putting together an inside scavenger hunt, for like your elementary age kids. And you know what, even though they act like it's lame and roll their eyes, and your older kids, your middle school kids are going to have fun doing this too. They won't admit it, and they're going to go the whole time. But then they come talk to like their case, I should say the youth that I work with, that my team works with, they'll be like, my mom made me do this really lame scavenger hunt, but it was actually really fun. And we know that mom put together this lame scavenger hunt because we helped her do it. But they will never admit that it was fun to anyone other than their providers. The older kids, if that's who you have in your house, having them help put it together if there's different age ranges. That's a struggle that a lot of caregivers are telling me. I've got a little, a middle, and a big, and I have a hard time finding something they all enjoy. So having the big help set up now we're not trying to parentify the kids, but having the bigs help set things up for the middles and the littles. It's all part of creating space where it's safe to do fun things inside. There are tons of resources on, and vet these first. I wouldn't just turn your kids loose on these. I would maybe either do it with them or watch them, or do it with them, or at least watch them first. And I know one of the questions was away from screen time, but there are a lot of really great kid yoga videos, especially and if any of you guys are members of Amazon Prime and have that on your TV, there's a lot of really great kid yoga videos on that. And not only is that getting you physically moving, doing those kinds of things, but that also does a ton for your mental health and for mindfulness in littles and middles and bigs. I've done some of those kid yoga videos with my daughter, and they're not easy. I'm not a yogi either, but they're not easy. So all of us, I think, most people could benefit from them. Not only is it good for their body as far as getting up and physically moving around, but also really good on our balance, our mindfulness, and our mental health. Motivation, it's again, a lot of it comes from leading by example, getting up and doing the activities with our kids. And I know a lot of you are trying to also work at home. So it's trying to find that balance between working part of your time and then being able to do these other things. We've had to make some really tough changes. Once upon a time, it was a nice big block of my day got to be work day. And then my evenings and my weekends were strictly family time. And frankly, it's become a lot more blended. And I've had to adjust some of my expectations around what that is. I will tell, we'll talk in the mornings about what this, if my doors are shut in the office, that means you cannot come in. And these are the 2 activities or the 3 activities you can do during that time. If my doors are open, but I'm on the phone, this is what you're supposed to do. And we've had conversations about that since March, including this morning. So it's not something we can talk about once and expect it to stick. It's something that they need constant reminders. And again, you're going to get the eye rolls and the I know, still going to say it. I'm the queen of leaving nothing unsaid. And notice I didn't say lower expectations, but I did say adjust our expectations, because I think society, social media, our own internal stuff, we put so much pressure on ourselves to do everything all the time and do it right. I had someone come in the other day, and I had just gotten done with some work stuff, and there were little landmines that have gone off all over my house. And somebody said, "Oh, were you home all day? And this is what you're," and I said, "Be careful what you say next." Because yes, I've been home all day, but I've been working, and she's been playing. So just be careful with the next words that come out your mouth. I have to know that there's going to be messes, and the messes stress me out too. They stress me out a lot. It can sometimes make you feel like you're doing something wrong, but sometimes that mess is also an indication of a kid that got to play, a kid that got to eat, a kid that put on some clean clothes because they left the dirty ones on the floor. So that's the chore for, I see that you ate. That's so great. Look at how responsible you're getting with making your own sandwich. Next step is make sure you get stuff put away. So that needs to happen before you go to your next thing. Starting that off with praise of recognizing what that skill was that then created the mess, but following it up with, and here's my expectation. So that's what I mean by adjusting them, not lowering them. And guys, please know, super easy for me to sit here right now and say all this stuff. Putting it into practice and doing it in real time, totally, totally different. I have to practice this all the time. My next section, I've got 2 here that says how to care for 3 different age groups as a single parent and tips for caring/teaching kindergartner while trying to do my job full time. I mean, I kind of blended into that one with the motivation around sometimes we have to chunk out our day. I'm finding myself working a lot later. I'm doing more of my work after she goes to bed. And I will be honest, I am very lucky and blessed that my employer and our agency allows us to have that flexibility. And I recognize that not everybody has that. I remind myself of that often, and I remind my staff of that because I have a lot of friends and family that work in other career paths or other places that don't have that. They just don't. And it sometimes has led to some really hard conversations with their supervisors around, I just can't be the same employee today as I was a year ago. And seeing what kind of accommodations they can help or make, if any. It falls into that category for me a lot of times is you don't know if you don't ask. And I will say that, as a person who supervises people, I tell them, be blunt, tell me what's going on, because you might think I know and I have no idea, because we're constantly moving and churning in different directions. So talk to your supervisors, talk to your businesses, talk to your jobs, and see if there's middle ground. See what options there are and adjust. We have to adjust accordingly. Next section here talks about kids and school stuff. It asks how to how to be present when in Zoom. And then there's one about a person whose children are shy and natural homebodies feel like the more we stay home and isolate, the more they want. Sorry, my screen's just not quite big enough to see everything. The more they want to stay home and be isolated, they want virtual school, although it isn't beneficial for them. They just hate going to school. They are 11 and 5. How can I encourage them to enjoy school and be thankful to be out of the house? So to be present in Zoom, again, age appropriate expectations. The younger they are, whether that's chronological age or developmental age, the younger they are, the less time they're going to be able to physically be present in Zooms. I've seen people do some really creative stuff. I've seen people, some of our case managers have worked with the kids on putting, now again, this is like with parent permission, with like discussion ahead of time, not just going rogue and doing things, but putting things that are almost like a visual fidget, like putting preferred items, things that catch kids' interest, like right up here next to the camera, little like a Spider-Man sticker or a something. So even though it sometimes is just giving an allude, it helps keep their interest up here. Now, granted, it may not be present in full sense, but it keeps them at least here. So they may be getting vicariously like hearing stuff and being more present than if they were on the floor, under the desk, or in the next room. I would also designate as much as you can. And again, I know that not everybody has, a separate office in their house. When this all first started, and there was a bunch of us here doing home and work and school, there was just little sections of the dining room table that was, this is my space, this is your space, you stay in your space, I stay in my space. But we've since moved some things around. So the more you can have designated school space, workspace, play space, the better of a mindset your kid's going to be in when they're doing Zoom work, Zoom school. TVs, distractions, noises in the background need to be kept at a minimum if possible. Again, I know that's easier said than done, but that's the reality of it. And I almost don't even want to say this next part because I'm so bad at it. So it feels like I'm asking you to do something that I don't do myself. But having a schedule, and I'm not saying be up with the sun, but making sure that if your kiddo is engaged in something that they want to be doing, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh gosh, your Zoom class starts in 30 seconds. Let's go. They're going to be like, wait, what? So allowing time for those transitions of where we do this and then we do that and then we do this. And as hard as this is, I would encourage giving opportunities throughout the day for kids to earn preferred activities. Even if that's throwing some shaving foam cream on a pie pan and letting them drive their cars around in it. It's a sensory activity. It's messy, but who cares? I mean, shaving foam, you can wipe it up. If it's getting to FaceTime with a friend, getting to paint their nails, something that's a preferred activity is an earned thing for a job well done versus giving consequences, taking away electronics, grounding somebody. I mean, we're all grounded right now, but punitive consequences tend to not have much success, but kids tend to do better behaviorally when they have opportunities to earn. So again, this kind of goes back to what we talked about in the very beginning, is talk to your kids, have those conversations around, I'd really love to see you have an opportunity to earn some things throughout the day, because, there's things I ask you to do that are not so much fun. And I would love to see you have an opportunity to earn. So just kind of think about, I don't need an answer right now, but just kind of think about what you would like to earn. And if you can identify a few things, if you can think of a few things, I'll attach something to that of value, whether that's completing their whole school day, completing a chore, whatever. You attach value. They give you what they want as their incentive. You attach a value to it. So you still have the control. You're still the authority in that, but they have a say and they get to participate in that. How can you encourage them to enjoy school? You can't, and have them be thankful to be out of the house. Right now, that's a huge change for them. And it may, I guess one of my questions would be, did they not like school before? Were they kids who enjoyed school before the pandemic and this is a change? Or has it always been this way? Because even though my now 7-year-old she does well academically and she's like a little social butterfly from what I hear, she has the biggest tantrums in the morning and doesn't want to go to school. And it blows my mind. And that's been that way since preschool. And I've realized that I don't know that I'll ever get her to like going. And that's okay. But she's still going to go. So she can, I give her those choices in other ways. Do you want to take this or this? Do you want to wear this or this? And I will validate how she's feeling. I'll tell her, I know you don't want to do this. I know this is something that you're not looking forward to. And it, again, with the cliche of the new normal, sometime going back to school will become new normal again. But part of that answer is, like I said, dependent on if they've always not wanted to go or if this is new and different. And I should add, at any point, friends on this call, if you ever just are really, really unsure, you can always, like I said earlier, talk to your pediatrician, talk to your primary care physicians, and see if having just a little bit of support from someone like myself, someone on my team, or someone at my agency is the right next move. Because parenting is hard. It's one of the hardest things to do. Parenting in a pandemic is a whole next level. And sometimes the kids just need a little extra support or structure or something, that someone within the ranks of our agency can do. But just please don't ever hesitate to at least to call. We can try to support you in whatever ways we can. Continuing down my list here. How do you make a child feel safe in medical settings when everyone is wearing a mask? And then there's some more content around this little lady and how not being able to see facial expressions, is a additional barrier to helping with that. Again, a lot of that comes from role modeling. And, when the school year was starting and there was a lot of discussion around whether or not the kids would wear their masks, one of the things that I said was, guys, like, we as parents, we as the caregivers, if we're like, and please know, like I said earlier, you're allowed to have your feelings about this. I'm not trying to tell you how to feel, but I will tell you that whether it's the mask issue or any other issue, if we go, okay, well, here's what we're doing today, guys, because, it's stupid and I don't want to do it, but this is what we're doing, they're not going to be excited about it. Whenever we have big changes happening at the agency, we as supervisors, we have to wrap our heads around it, and we role model appropriate behaviors. So if we as the parents or caregivers are saying, here's this mask, look, this is how I wear it, we show that we're wearing it. And I realize with this particular question, this young lady is 17 months old. So that's really young. She's going to be pulling that off her face and not having anything to do with it. But the more that we show them, and then we still maybe turn it into a game of peekaboo before you leave the house to show it's still mama under here, it's still daddy under here, it's still Grammy under here, to kind of show that it's the same. The other thing I would encourage, especially now that we're almost a year into this, is the masks that have that transparent, that are clear. They have those kind of cutouts, and bringing them with you to give to the caregivers in the office or the nurse, the medical staff in the office, and ask and say, this is clean, this is sterile. Would you mind wearing this instead so she can see your face? They might tell you no, or they might not be able to for various reasons, but they're becoming a lot more commonplace. And that's inclusion. I mean, that's what that is making sure that we're including everyone and having that as an option. And being mindful of what that looks like and feels like, in real time. Okay, so we've got a few other questions on here. It says how to take care of their mental health. These seem a little, these are more general. It says social/emotional health. This one made me giggle, becoming a hermit/caveman. Those are, like I said, much kind of in my more general category. And I hope that I have given some ideas and thoughts around that, through some of that other conversation. Excuse me. How can we care for the children when the family has COVID-19? So, for families that are facing that or have faced that, I would, we genuinely, we do the best we can. That falls a little bit more into the medical side of this versus necessarily the mental health stuff, because we have to know how to try to prevent spreading it within our own family systems. And each family's built differently as far as who's around and who's available. I don't, it doesn't bother me in disclosing that my husband did test positive for COVID. He was out of town at the time. And when he did, and when he came home, he came home, and he came in the middle of the night. He was double masked, wearing his gloves. I knew he was coming, so I was in a whole nother part of the house. He came in, he went to the room, and I put like towels under the door, Lysoled everything, wiped everything down, and he didn't come out for 2 weeks. But I was healthy and our daughter was healthy. So I called the doctor. I said, what can we do? What's the best way of having him here? Because he has to be here, but also keeping us safe. And they gave me some ideas and suggestions. Not everybody has a village. And I know, some people's villages are very small. Some people's villages are very large. And one of the things that has come out of this that is, in my opinion, very positive is, as I'm not a huge fan of social media because of some of the negative pieces I've seen leading up to this last year in working with youth. But in the last year, I've seen people be able to reconnect with family, with friends in a whole different way because of the pandemic. We've seen birthday parties on Zoom. And I'm not just promoting Zoom. We've seen birthday parties, Christmases, Thanksgivings on some sort of video platform. So people are able to find like some of the most unique and interesting groups by searching for them. And don't just turn your young person loose on this, because there's a lot of bad people out there that prey on our kids. So please, please, please monitor what they're doing. But also I've become so flexible on our screen time rules, because there are some times where she does Zoom with some of her friends for 3 hours. And I'm like, are you guys done yet? They're in here doing gymnastics moves and playing with their dolls. And as goofy as it is, that's all they have right now. And my staff that work with the older kids, the middle school and the high school kids, they're doing what they can. And yes, they are burning through those minutes. They're burning through those FaceTime hours with each other. But that's all that they have right now. When we talk about what can we do as youth, I've had some of our young people that we work with reach out to like their school staff, counselors, social workers, those sorts of folks, and say, I want to create a youth like support type group. So if you have others that are struggling, like, can you kind of help connect us, you know, for kids that don't have friends or don't have very many friends. And so they've kind of helped lead this chat group, chat circle, and develop new friendships. I had a few kids that moved in February of last year. So they were only able to be in school for a couple of weeks before things shut down. They just didn't have a chance to make new friends. This is part of what motivated them to start these youth chat circles, and getting help through the folks at the schools to do that. And I'm rapidly running out of minutes, but I'm going to keep trucking through this list the best I can. The best way to curb tantrums when the whole household has cabin fever. You know, get out of the house if you can, even if that means just taking a car ride. I know it's like wicked cold out right now, but it's better today than it was a couple days ago. And it looks like it's, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to get like into the 70s, but it's also not just ridiculous like it once was. So going for a car ride, forget the schedule, you know, forget picking up the little messes. We need to get out of here. We need to push the reset button. Let's go. You know, going for the car ride, everybody, you know, doing something silly. And if it can be like inclusive with everyone in the family, and even if it's silly, I have one family that when they get really, really frustrated with each other, they play this game where because they're angry and they're a family of yellers. And so they yell compliments at each other until they all start laughing. It's a mom with 3 teenage girls, and they will be standing there yelling at each other in the living room, like, I really like your hair, it looks great. But we started it in my office, and it's the silliest thing. And my neighbors are like, seriously, like, what are you guys doing in there? Because we're all just screaming compliments at each other. It's goofy, but it gets people laughing. And then they can like get from this like angry place to a not so angry place because we're all laughing. Chair races. We've sometimes encouraged at the schools, we've taken the chairs and done hallway races. So, you know, the sillier, the better, just taking a break from everything we're doing and let's just do something else. Sometimes we have to have that reset button for our life, for our family, for our kids, for ourselves. And within your circles, within your villages, if you have people who can help, you know, don't be afraid to use them. Some of the people in my village, they aren't comfortable right now doing babysitting type stuff or daycare, you know, babysitting or helping me out, which is fine. Honestly, I'm not comfortable sending her just anywhere either. So, you know, if you have one place that you're comfortable using, use it to reset your own batteries every once in a while. And if you don't, that's okay too. There's this concern with lack of socialization in young children. And we talked about that a little bit. They may not have the initiative to reach out to their schools, but maybe you do as parents, you know, to reach out to the teacher and say, you know, my daughter, my son is really struggling. Do you know if there's any of the kids in class that might be open to getting together virtually? Could we do something like that? Talk to your school's mental health team, because that's where kids make friends, is at school, at recess, on the playground, in the lunchroom. So reach out to them and see what opportunities they might be able to help you develop. Here's one about an upcoming birthday. How can I effectively and compassionately explain to him being not comfortable hosting a group of kids in an offsite location when other classmates of his are? That's all of these are tough ones, and the questions are great questions, guys. There's this other one about tips for helping keep kids motivated and continue planning events when there's a constant threat for cancellations. So I make it sound so easy, and it's not. It is not so easy, but it goes back to that talking to them. I understand that you're right. It's not fair that other kids are doing things differently than what I'm comfortable with you doing. And you're right. It might make me the meanest mom in the world. And you're right. It's not fair. Part of my job of being your mom is making really hard choices. And sometimes that means having to be the bad guy. So you can be mad at me, and I can accept that, because we have to be okay with that sometimes. But I would also, once you get done being mad, or once you can stop being maybe even just a little bit mad, I wonder if you can get creative and think about what other options might there be. Doing this option is not the only thing. There are other things we can do. So I encourage you. I can come up with something. You might not like it though. It might not be as much fun as what you had in mind. So encourage them to put some thought into that. And one of the most important things in taking care of kids, regardless of our role, is consistency, and sticking to it. As far as, this is what I've decided and this is what feels safe to me, because should something go the other direction, or should something not turn out well, you want to be able to stick to your convictions, so to speak, but also stay consistent for your kids. They kind of count on that. They don't love it, because sometimes that means rules and lack of opportunity in doing cool stuff, but they count on that to know that you're going to be consistent for them through the easy stuff, the hard stuff, and everything in between. And with this one about motivation to continue to be planning for things and hoping for things and working towards things, even with the threat of cancellation. If we've learned nothing in the last year, it's have a plan B. Here's our plan A, here's our plan B, and what could be a fun plan C? I know I keep using examples with my own kiddo, but again, wanting to make this as real as I can for you guys. We have gone so silly sometimes with a plan A that makes perfect sense. Plan B is completely normal. We've had like plan G that includes things that are not even real, like unicorns and ninjas and all sorts of silly business, because do I know I'm fully aware that that's not going to happen, but it's not about the unicorns and rainbows and ninjas. It's about helping foster her imagination, helping solidify that connection, helping her feel validated and heard, allowing her space to be silly, and putting an interest, me as the adult in her life, as the mom in her life, putting interest into what she's wanting to say and do, and kind of planting those foundational things early, so that, in 10 years, hopefully she's still talking to me. But when she's one of those gnarly, nasty teenagers, sorry. That's real world too, when alarms are just going off all around us, right, guys? So I think I got, here's a question on here of how to be companion with older teenage grandchild. And it's that same stuff, showing an interest in what they want to do. When I am talking, and it is harder in some ways, depending on what they're into, because if it's technology stuff or video games or things we find repulsive or not interesting at all, it's hard to be interested. But, the more that we can let them be the experts, let them teach us something new, it just creates an opportunity for them to shine. And being open to that. It may not be what you as the grandparent want to do necessarily, but it's not about that. What you're trying to probably do is develop some sort of common ground. And if we can start where they're at, and build that foundation, then we can just kind of grow from there. The only other one that I'm seeing, unless I'm missing one, is one about when a child can get the shot. And again, that's beyond my scope. I'm sorry, friends. That's a really great question for the pediatrician, because that is who's going to be the better suited. And I'm not trying to put you off. I just don't know the answer to that. So I went a couple minutes over. So thank you for sticking with me. I really appreciate it. I hope you learned something. I hope something from this was helpful. And, I'll end with that cliche of we're all in this together. So reach out to us. Let us know how we can help.
Great, Jenny, thank you so much. I have just a couple of things before you jump off of here, everyone who joined us. I'm going to share my screen. We talked a little bit about, when folks are dealing with having COVID-19, I wanted to share some information. We are providing a free service at FSGC for anyone who's been negatively impacted by COVID. You don't have to, it's not about the fact that you have COVID. Maybe you lost your job, or you're just feeling scared or sad or afraid. Maybe you need to get hooked up to community resources, like finding a stable source of food, those types of things, apartments, eviction, those types of things. If you or anyone find yourself in those situations, down here, you'll see, if you go to our website, it is fsgctopeka.com/stronger. You'll just fill out a few little tidbits of information, and one of our staff members will reach back out to you within 2 business days. Like Jenny said, while it is cliche, that's one positive thing that we've seen, I think, at the agency, that, everybody is coming together. And this is just one way that FSGC can help folks in our Topeka, Northeast Kansas community. One quick reminder as well, if you need a certificate of attendance for tonight and have not already dropped your first and last name in the chat box, and just type the word certificate, please do that. We will be sure to get that out to you. And if you know of anyone who has kids at home who you think might benefit from these monthly workshops, please feel free to share this information. Our Facebook page is a great place to find it. But also, since we record all of these, and most of the time I remember to unmute myself. But if you go to our website, the fsgctopeka.com, there's a blue button in the top right-hand side, and it says Parenting Resources. There's lots of good information. And Jenny mentioned, kid yoga. There's all kinds of information. If you just scroll down there, we want to provide as many resources for you all as parents, as caregivers, because, I'm a parent too. Jenny's nodding her head. We realize it is tough and want to help as much as we can. Again, thank you all so much for joining us, and we hope you got a lot of good information out of it. So take good care, and hopefully we'll see you all next month.